Hey, welcome back to the PDX Black Rose Podcast. Again, I'm your host, Stephen Christian, and today we have the OG John Washington. He was a guest for the first episode of the PDX Black Rose Podcast, and so now, 2 years later, he's starting off the next series of podcasts. Well, the best way that he knows how, unapologetically black. And so we get to riff on a whole bunch of different things that happened over the past couple of years, just starting to appreciate the things that the journey that we've both been on as we've collaborated with each other, and also just exploring what it's like to be black in Portland during COVID times and owning businesses. And so it's a great conversation. I hope you learn a lot from it. If you haven't already, check out the first episode of the PDX Black Rose Podcast, where we learn more and more. And so, without further ado, let's get the podcast started. I wanted to take a break from the episode to let you know that we have some merch that is available. Over at Iltopia Studios, you can find the Black Superheroes Matter art book, which is a collection of illustrations that reimagine your favorite superheroes through the eyes of children of color. We also have a bunch of sticker packs, over 120 different sticker designs of your favorite superheroes. More importantly, we have our Color Me Super coloring book series. Definitely check out the merch at shop.iltopia.com or blacksuperheroesmatter.com. And now back to the episode.
So how you been, Stephen? What's going on with you? This week, how's this week been?
It's got my first vaccination today. So that's good. It's because I work. One of my contracts is with Portland Public Schools, and another contract is with Portland Community College. And
where'd you go to get it? Out there in by the Islanders? Where'd you go to get it?
Oh no, by in the convention center.
Oh, you went to the convention center.
Yeah. So they got the setup there. It looks like a freaking like one of those, like when like those sci-fi movies where the aliens take over and then like everybody's in like a convention center and stuff, and all you see is like a whole bunch of people, a whole bunch of military people freaking like aiding people and stuff like that. Like that is exactly how it looked. It looked like
did you take a video of that shit?
I did, like they were sort of, like it's a whole bunch of old people and stuff, so they were sort of tripping about the videos, but I tried to get a little bit in there. But
yeah, because you got to capture the times, boy. I'm gonna tell you, it's I got mine on the weekend, man.
Okay.
First one,
the first one.
Yeah.
Which one did you get? Did you get the Moderna or the Pfizer?
I got the Moderna.
Oh yeah, interesting.
Yeah, and the we were out there. They had it at the airport too. They had a big one at the fucking airport. That was crazy, man. I mean.
Like, was it indoors or outdoors?
Oh, it was outside. They were in the parking lot. One of them big areas that they had out there. And I can see it from up there. And so I took Fawn along with me because I figured, well, this shit, if I get it right. And I'm gonna tell you, man, they under telling you what the fucking symptoms are. They said, look here, boy, I done had diarrhea. I felt worse since I got that shit than I did before I got it, So I thought, I'm going to hear that shit. They actually make your ass sick. You know what I'm saying?
So this is the thing, right? The way the vaccine works is that it's essentially training camp for your body, okay. Right? So think about, like, we all know what the season feels like, but our way to sort of prepare for the season is we all got to go to training camp. Nobody wants to, like, I don't know anybody that wants to do training camp.
I'm telling you, that first 30 is a motherfucker, isn't it?
Yeah, but right, like, so you get a dose, but to say that like training camp is the full experience of a full season, you'd be looking at people crazy, like, like
this is the worst of it right about here.
Yeah, and so that's what I always try to tell people about how vaccines work, right? Is that, like, this is your body training for the game. You got to get through training camp in order to start. And so if you don't get through training camp, then that's how people get screwed, right?
Yeah, you make a good point. Yeah.
And so it's it's not the vaccine that makes you sick. It's just that your body's response to the vaccine getting in your body, that's what's causing that reaction. And so that's why they say if you're allergic to something, you need to be wary and you need to know about that and let them know, because it's like if somebody, we all know people that have peanut allergies, right?
Right.
And so if you're injecting some peanuts in somebody and they don't know, then they're going to have some problems.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
We're not sitting here and saying that like peanuts are evil.
Yeah.
It's just that some people just can't have peanuts.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying the symptoms that they say.
Yeah.
It's almost like, but I remember every time I get the flu shot every year, I feel real tired after for a day or two.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
A little run down, feeling like I'm fighting this fucking virus. So that day I got it. I was fine for a little while, but then I started feeling all them hot flashes.
Yep. Yep. You start feeling some of the things like, yep, that's that body training right there.
Okay.
It's training
that's
camp.
When you tell the shit working there, right?
Yeah. Well, that's how, like, I think because my Tyne, she had COVID and then she also got the vaccine.
Oh.
And so she had COVID and she was out.
Right.
Like she was out. Like she passed out on the ground. She was like, it was all types of bad. And so now she had it in November. She caught it in November, like mid-November. And she's just now starting to get over some of the symptoms of having COVID. She hasn't been able to smell. She hasn't been able to taste stuff. It's been sort of all over the place. And so she's just now starting to get over it. And so it's like, I'll take a bad day or so if I don't have to deal with, I don't have to deal with stuff for 5 months, just because you just went around somebody that had it. Like it's, the risk.
It's a bear, man. I'm gonna tell you, boy. When I went to Georgia, like I told you, I've been here in Oregon, and I feel like we've been living in a free zone or some shit. But when I got to Georgia, Steven, I'm gonna tell you, man, I was hugging cousins and shit that was pushing me back and said, "Nah, man, we just got over this shit. Oh, I just lost my wife, or we just lost Uncle Who, or this or that." Man, I'm saying, what the fuck? And they'll be the first to tell you, man, it's shit like a fucking bomb got dropped down here, man. And it's like the most country folks, they must have not been paying attention or something, because when that shit hit their ass, they must have just all took it for granted or whatever the case might have been. But man, it's different than here. I'm gonna tell you.
Well, yeah, so. Like it's and I think it's to that point, right? Like us in Portland, we're all hyper aware of everything, right? Right. They just opened up all of Texas. And they're like, oh yeah, things are like, let's get back to business and all that stuff. Yeah. And it's like, who are the people that are going to be the most affected?
That's right.
Us.
Yes, we ain't smart enough to understand the fucking none of that. We ain't paying attention to none of that. We might be smart enough to pay it if we was paying attention, but we ain't paying attention. We trying to get ours, or get that booty, or get that money, or what a man, fuck all of that. I ain't trying to hear all that shit. I'm trying to tell you, there's a boogeyman out there, motherfucker. He eat niggas. Yeah, maybe you ought to put a comic about that shit. Even you better have the big green blob in the beginning. Motherfucker, you ought to create a COVID comic. Who the fuck is COVID? Mr. 19, this motherfucker stuff. I come in big clouds, sucking up niggas.
But this is the world, right? Like it's not like any of this stuff is new. Right, like it's the same old thing, just packaged just a little differently.
Yeah,
right?
Man, I'm straight with it. Like I said, give it wide berth. Like I tell people all the time, man, I hunt for a reason. I hunt to know that there are animals out there that are bigger and better than me in their environment, man. So you better learn how to understand some shit when they come, and you got to understand how to get out the way. And I wasn't trying this one. You knew normally I'd try to think my immune system is strong enough to handle anything, even hell. But this one was killing people, man, too fast, man. Man, I watched them numbers for months and weeks, but and I'm talking about when you start looking at numbers like 500,000. I know, motherfucker. You know,
Like,
I'm out of here. This ain't a game I want to play. You know, so y'all, you know.
Yeah,
You can't shoot nothing, you can't kill nothing, you can't stab it, you can't do none of that. You know, it jump on you and put you down, pin you down like you done. You know, so no.
It's yeah, man. It's crazy. But
But
yeah,
look what
man,
you got to come
like
into, bro. Look what you got to come into as a doctor, man. The new era of medicine. Think about that shit. You know, where the new
right,
era of
like
medicine
it's
is going, man.
well, I think, and for those that are just now listening, like we have John Washington on the podcast and everything, and we're just chopping it up,
Hey,
right?
you know,
Like
now we just
I
chopping it
think,
up, right?
I think the beauty of these types of conversations at this point is that these are just conversations that we're having amongst each other, and we're fortunate enough to put on the airwaves so that other people can tap in with it. And so if you guys haven't gotten caught up with all the other podcasts, John was the first guest on the PDX Black Rose podcast. So if you would love to, hear the origins of John and everything back when we started this, definitely tap in with the first episode. I also helped them with the Black Beat podcast where he's the host, and he essentially, took the stuff we all been working on, and he started to tap in with the community, and sort of spread the stories that are around, Portland and beyond. And so since the last episode of the podcast, which was in 2020, obviously we were dealing with COVID.
Wow, wow.
Yeah, like we're dealing with COVID, we're dealing with a whole bunch of different things. But I also got into medical school, so that's a great opportunity. And
that's always a wonderful thing to hear.
Yeah, Black people ain't getting into medical school, and when they do, man,
too many places they act like they is, but they get too many
yeah,
places
man, it's and so glad to sort of embark on that journey. But yeah, I think to that point, it's like, right, like they're saying that we'll be starting medical school in person, but COVID and in-person stuff on a global level or whatever, like that's still sort of up in the air, right? Like, to that point, we're still seeing cases skyrocket, people and
all that,
right, like new variations, stuff that's more potent, and the reality is that, like, we just don't know what's going to happen. We know what has happened, but we don't know what's going to happen in the future. And so I'm really curious to see what this experience is going to be like, because like, this is going to be the second medical school class going into COVID, and there's no precedent after that. Like, the precedent was last year, and they still don't know. They're still trying to figure things out. So if it's remote, then that means I'll just be on Zoom classes again or whatever. Like,
but you got to get it in. You know what I'm saying?
You got
to happen. And I think that that's the sign of the times. I mean, I think that, even as we came through, man, God, Stephen, a year is how much has happened in a year when we consider it, right? I mean, when we look at COVID, COVID had us pinned down for a while there. And I think that there was some real interesting dynamics that occurred, not only for the individual, but as a societal reality, on the worldwide deal, but it did purge and bring forward some real interesting insights into things. But it coupled itself. It's always coupling itself with something. I mean, we were, looking at economic. Now here we are looking at economics. But when we looked at this past year and the COVID thing, just think about how much introspection we had to be able to begin to look at our state of affairs and our condition. And looking at that scoreboard of the bodies that was accruing daily, man, one had to consider, man, at least, what trajectory are they on? What's your destiny? What is it that you try? You had to start considering some of these things, at least start looking at, well, damn, when I get out this house, what am I going to do? What's going to be the next? And I mean, health and prosperity and all that stuff came into the fray. But the question was, what is the world going to look like, once this pandemic is over and we come back out again, what has emerged, what is emerging. And not everybody got shut down though. The money train didn't get shut down. And of course you watch that president on the way out, man, just rock this world.
Mm-hmm.
And somewhere along the line, he rose his head up and he says, I run this shit and I'm going to show y'all how much we do. And then what you think about that. And I like the pushback. I like the type of response that he got, but he went into denial. And which is funny for me, Steve, because I was listening, I was riding the other day and I was listening to these comedians on that thing on the box in the in the ride, right? Xfinity or whatever.
Thing on the box.
Yeah, the comedian came on and he laughed. He says, "Ha ha ha! We're living in one of the greatest delusional times in the history of man." Now listen to what he was saying. He says, "Man, I have never seen a society where there are so many people that could be so easily delusioned, to believing some shit that ain't true." And he says, well, damn, man, I mean, what is this? What type of time are we living in? I mean, where people can literally embrace and develop a lie. But that's not rare for the controlling society. That's not a unique thing, because they actually believed that it was okay for them to enslave us.
There was a whole society that said that we are above these darkies over here.
Yeah.
And we're going to not teach them anything so that we can continue this stupid narrative that we know more and we're better.
And that narrative is controlling us still to this day. But the question that I'm having is anybody else seeing some of the dynamics that are different today than it would be? Stephen, I was thinking about this before we came into the podcast. This whole issue around what we see, like say if this would have, like this whole Floyd thing, right? Foot on the neck, the death. I mean, because that one death did not equate. It for me, it equated to some total of many other ones. But it was enough already because, like I said, I was hunkered down. We saw it. It was in slow motion. Peckinpah came in and slowed down the violence. And we were able, for that 8 minutes, being able to see the life choked out of somebody. But that ain't the first life we've seen choked out of somebody, at least not for me. And it most likely probably ain't going to be the last. Well, hopefully it ain't going to be mine. But what I saw was different, man, is if it was 20 years ago, 25 years ago, when we would have had the same elements and dynamics that might have rose up as a result of racial injustice in this country, it would have been able to have been sit down to just the simple reality of white and black, right? That this whole notion that this was white people perpetrating these things upon black people. But over a 25-year span, and you guys have heard me speak about this before, is that this whole issue of civil rights in this country had been under attack for quite a long time. And so to me, when this came into today's time, it's a little bit different dynamic, okay? We come through a time when I remember clearly when they sold us on diversity. And I keep telling people about this, and but you're gonna hear how it's working today and not necessarily in your favor. Then they came and they said, well, could we try all these other elements, the LGBTQ, women's rights, handicaps, other cultures, could we put them all on that civil rights platform and call it diversity? And the response, I said, well, why should we? And the response from white America would say, well, it would advance your agenda. It would give you wings. It would influence, we would have people on that platform that could help you influence that agenda. They didn't lie to us about that part of it. It did influence that agenda. It did accelerate that platform to a greater degree. But who got accelerated on that platform and what got accelerated on that platform? Okay, everybody else's issues on that platform proliferated. And today, LGBTQ, top dog, they get top billing, TV, everything, it's in that sector. They're not they're not necessarily marginalized. They got a platform to argue women's rights, or they're coming and they're prolific and they've been doing it. Handicaps, Hispanics, everybody's getting that just due. And now we're in a marketplace now where we see this racist agenda proliferate again and raise its head. But what's different in the room today, Stephen, is that when we get into this room today and we discuss it, now we're looking at this conversation around equity. And you remember the CARES Act and all that stuff. And one of the things about the CARES Act was those CV-19 dollars that were given into our state to assist people in crisis and that kind of stuff. Well, when we went to get our share of that, there was this perspective about, well, why would you Black people just come alone? Why didn't you bring Hispanics with you? Why didn't you bring the LGBTQ community with you? There's an assumption that we as Black people always need to couple ourselves with something. But the minute that agenda, when we bring light to our atrocities that are placed upon us as a people specifically, it always has to be addressed in some global reality. So
yeah, it always has to be packaged as like people of color or
right.
minorities or something like that in order for people to take it seriously.
Right. And that's what we're dealing with today, Stephen. I mean, it's different today in the room, right? So even though we getting the life choked out of us, it's another 2 or 3 layers that's been added to now our justice, right? And how I say that is that in the room today, as we discuss that, now we're dealing with equity and BIPOC, right? So it adds another layer to our justice. It's like everybody else is in that room fighting for a justice also. And so it makes our justice not as big as it used to be when it stood alone. You know what I'm saying? So now we got these layers on it, right? So it goes through the eyes now of a BIPOC eye. So I don't know what a BIPOC is. That like a black eye or something, a beat up eye? I don't know. What's a BIPOC eye, right? It's many different shit. And it's not that I disagree with any of those other platforms, but the issue is there was never a justice for us, and the original platform was set for us. So now we have other layers that we have to purge through to get to that justice. We have to hear about everybody else's inequities and injustice before we can get to dealing with ours. So it just adds another layer. And I'm not necessarily so sure I'm comfortable with that. Yeah, maybe I'm just an old timer, holding on to old ideas or old ideals. But
I don't think that obviously when you're talking about like listening to stuff on the box from the tube, you're dating yourself a little bit. But I think the reality is that you've been around the block a couple of times, right? And so you've seen sort of the inception of these ideas, and then you've seen over the decades how those things have sort of manifested from the ideals. And so you have the experience and you have the awareness to form an opinion around the state of affairs now, right? And I think that's unique because one, like you were a part of it from the beginning, right? Like it's something that you've had to deal with and live with, right? And because how like you were born based on how old you are, you weren't born with the right to vote, right?
Oh, I was born with the right to vote. They can probably be brother. What you I ain't that old. I was born with the right to vote.
You were born after 1960. You were born before 1964, right?
Around in that area.
Yeah. So if you're born before 1964, Black people didn't get the right to vote till after 1964. And so by default, you like if you were just being born in a particular year, that determines whether you had full rights as a citizen born into this country.
But what's fascinating though, but I did have a draft card.
Yeah, right. Like
I couldn't vote, but I had a draft card.
Yeah. And so I think to that point, it's like, there's only there's like all women can't say that, right?
Yeah.
If we're talking about the rights of women in this country, all women can't say, oh, before 1960, I was born without the right to vote as a woman, but Black women can say that.
Yeah.
And I think to that point, because regardless of what gender you are, you're still like, still that aspect of race that transcends everything. And so I think that for us as Black people, we know that, like, yes, there'll be colorism, there'll be sexism, there'll be, all these different things, classism, all that, amongst ourselves as Black people, amongst ourselves as people of color, amongst ourselves as minorities, amongst ourselves as Americans. But that overarching thing that always takes precedent is always that racism, right? There's always, at the end of the day, you are a Negro, you're Black, you like, and so you can only get so far regardless of those things.
Right.
And so
The narrative is always being cultivated as the anti side of racial justice in this country. So that narrative always runs as we progress in that narrative. The anti aspect of that also progresses. And that's the diligence, the due diligence we got to stay abreast of, and how that reinvents as we reinvent our process and to elevate it to somehow to get some righteousness or to get some justice or however we do it. The anti aspect of that is also moving us along with it and growing. And so when I look at that, there's always some counterintelligence or some counter organizing reality that's associated with our justice, and people need to start looking at that aspect of it. Don't just think because one morning you woke up is that they freed the slaves that your ass was free, because that wasn't really what the case was. As you've seen over the years, they've always constantly reinvented something to enslave you, some way, shape, or form. And what I find fascinating about that, Stephen, is that what's the thought process of the enslaver? And what is he really thinking? And so it goes back to what that comic said, is that we're living in the most delusional time of the history, because people actually buy a lie constantly. And that lie is somewhere in themselves that they are better than us, that this country was created for them, or whatever you want to call it, the capitalist. So I'm saying to us is that we have to be ever diligent about declaring what the reality or the response to a condition is. And not only do we declare that, Stephen, we have to become very deliberate about how we're going to address those things. One of the biggest struggle I had throughout all of that, when with old boy and the issue about that cop putting his neck on, is what came up for me in that time, man, was this issue of how is it that we have come to a place to where we exist in a country where we got laws like stand your ground and all those things, and somehow or another we maintain this victim posture, like as if we can't defend ourselves against a would-be attacker, And so I struggled with that, man, for a long time. I mean, I still do, is that we have to somehow or another stop looking at that as from a victim position. And because, man, when you look at other cultures' advancements in this country, man, I gotta honestly tell you this, and part of my family history and background, Irish, you know, and I watched the Italians, I watched the Irish, and every one of these other cultures that came into this country and who had a subordinate reality in this country fought and clawed their way to the top of acceptance in this country. But I placed the emphasis in on the realization is that they literally fought in the street with those things that resisted them from advancing in this country. And every culture in this country that may be white in this, but the Irish, and to some degree, never necessarily were accepted as white in this country. They were called the same N-word that we were called over the years, and to some degree, but yet at the same time, they weren't willing to accept that. And they took on those powers that, from a physical reality, that said anytime they came in and threatened them and suppressed them and all that, they fought back. And so any culture in this country that has dignity and respect in this country today are cultures who fought the powers that be back. And so,
yeah,
so that's the way I see it. I mean,
I think the only thing about that is that, I'm 20% Irish. You look at me, you would never know, right?
Oh, I can see the Irish in you.
I mean, but like I'm walking down the street, right? Like I'm walking down the street, you would never, that's not the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah,
and so and so I think that, when we're talking about these things and advancements and sort of ingrained in culture, yes, culture gets accepted when sort of the people of the culture fight for that, you know, both on the street and the boardroom, all those different things. And I think we're seeing that, right? Like we sort of had a reckoning, and so from last year and the things that took place, you know, those cultural things that Black people had to endure and sort of suck up, you know, leaving their culture at the door so that they can actually go to a workplace and get paid, right? You know, having to cut your hair and have it be a certain way so that you become palatable in a boardroom. You know, like those are conversations that people are having to reckon with those things and respect the culture. But I think that and so to that point, I think, you know, 2020 is sort of the breaking point where people were like, oh no, like I'm not leaving myself, especially if I'm sitting at home. I'm not going to be at home having to do a perm just so I could hop on a Zoom call.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and so people had, I think there was sort of a tipping point that way. But then I also go back to just how shallow things are, right? Where, you know, the beauty of the Italians and the beauty of the Irish is that at some point they could just have kids with any other white person, and then those kids will be able to assimilate into society as white people, right? Like they still have their culture, they still have their identity, they still have those sort of nuances that make them of their culture. But once you put a little bit of Black in there, right, then there's this whole scene. There's this whole thing that comes from that. And so I think that, you know, it gets really interesting when you add Blackness to it, because you there's solidarity, but there's no way to compare it in many ways, because just at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you freaking 80% Irish. It don't matter if you are, you know, 95% freaking it doesn't matter if both of your parents are Italian. If you got those Negro features, they're gonna look at you stupid when you say that I'm from Europe.
Well,
right?
You know what it is, though. I mean, because you know, I went to school on a Paul Robeson scholarship. I don't know if you know that or not, but and Paul was a fascinating man, a Black man, a four-letter man out of Rutgers, one of the first Blacks to ever go to the institution, and that institution goes on record today to say that it was the first collegiate football team to ever, a school to ever play a football game, collegiate football game, and Paul Robeson was in that game. And but he defected and went to Russia. And one of the things that he said that he experienced for the first time in Russia when they brought him back here to somehow or another try to call him a communist, and said that he was one of these people that was anti-America, all of that kind of stuff. And he came back and he stated that, you know, when I stepped on the soil of Russia, for the first time, I actually believed and felt like I was a man, a human man. And I took that to heart, man. I mean, because I'm listening to this cat, man. And but I think that when we look at the basic principle of what whites are trying to say, it's hard to sift through what they're trying to say, because you just can't figure out, well, why one morning somebody wake up and dislike me so much? I ain't did nothing to these people, you know. Well, what the hell? Why they dislike me so much? You come to realize that there's something that a man or a human entity has an internal fear of. And for me, what I've come to understand, one of the other things I got while I was at Rutgers was this whole understanding about the genetic disposition of this country and what the real bottom line fear of this country really is. And this is what's really scary that they ain't teaching in school. And for those who are paying attention, this genetic principle is simply rooted in the fact that I want my son to look like me when he's born, okay? And that when the minute that Negroid gene gets introduced to the equation, that everybody's gonna look like him, okay? Because the Negroid gene is a dominant gene. You're going into medical school, these are gonna be some things that you're gonna learn, you probably already have learned to a greater or lesser degree about these. So if we get the foundational understanding of what the argument really is all about and why he's basically threatened by our existence. And that's a good and a bad place to be, man. Because if somebody got more power, more money, more resources than you, and they threatened by you, what you think they're gonna do with that resource and that opportunity? right? They're going to spend most of that trying to make your life miserable and keep you away from his daughter.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, and that's where we come to today, Stephen. I think that this whole premise in my book, and the way I see it, is that neither this country is going to accept the atrocities it has perpetrated upon Black people and make some kind of adjustment to compensate that or to somehow or another address that, or they're going to do what most people that live in a delusional denial kind of realm is that they're going to make your ass disappear. And to a greater or lesser degree, I see the construct has arrived to that place of where you have now become a disappearing act. Yeah, they can hear you out there marching on the street, Black Lives Matter and all that other kind of stuff. But when you see what we stacked up against today, it is a disappearing act that is being put upon us, because when you're standing in a room with 50 people who all got 50 different agendas, your agenda does not look as daunting and as large as everybody else's combined would be. So it almost lets him off the hook to a greater degree, all these other elements. That's why I say that there's a status that is equally as there is a directing or an agenda, there is a counter-organizing agenda that's going on constantly. So we got to be ever vigilant about that one. But the next one is, for me, Stephen, is about the young people moving into this time. You know, there's a tragedy that's occurring. There's a separation between the new generation of young people and the old generation of young people, of older people. And that rift of that opportunity, that technology has drawn that rift between that, is to some degree a deceptive reality, in that we cannot get our cultural history and the understanding. You know, man, the Jews won't ever let their kids forget Auschwitz. They won't, and then there's some of those white Aryan people that would say Auschwitz, and now that never exists.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's there's that thing that's starting to like creep up again, and people are going on news stations saying like, no,
it never happened, right?
Like it's like, and the response to it is like, people were like, no, this did happen, and we're gonna make sure you know about it.
Damn right. The Jews ain't gonna never let you forget what Hitler and them did. And I don't see why. I'm not necessarily, and man, Stephen, I get misunderstood sometimes because I'm not a race hater. I'm not one of these people who are one of these radicals or all of that. Me, I'm a sort of guy that, try to find a vein of truth that I can start from and work toward a solution with. Because if I'm standing on a delusional reality or a skeptical reality or something that's fabricated, all that, you can't find your footing, man, to evolve to something that gives you some sense of I'm okay, And for me, I spend a lot of my time trying to build and foster these things in the community and in people, these three perceptions about capability, significance, and influence. A lot of this shit is systemic. And as much as we want to believe that we can go after racial equity, it's going to be a hard thing as long as we got institutions and systems that are reinforcing race confusion or race difficulty. So how do we, as the young people today, who so much probably want to be, and I can respect this, so much want to be beyond this. You know what I'm saying, man? And the quickest way to get beyond this is to somehow another assimilate, But that assimilation ain't working for us neither, because we still
it perpetuates the same problems.
Man, we're still not gaining the opportunities that we need to gain to be able to have generational wealth in this country. So this country is going to either have to stop, get over itself, break us off like they did the natives, like they did the Japanese, like they did the Irish. The Jews. All of this stuff is because somewhere along the line, someone has to or should apologize.
Yeah.
If you look at, that's what it all sits down to. You got Como over there and the governor, he fighting because he done made some old stupid statements to some women, right? That he should have never did. So he fighting that, right? And so what all of them do, and Trump, he didn't even consider it. He ain't got no dignity whatsoever. He doesn't apologize, no nothing. But the issue is, you get to somewhere along the line, you go, we acknowledge. Because that's the healthy way to deal with an atrocity or something that's a reality. The human nature will split a couple of times. It'll do some shit like go into denial. It usually a split its nature. Well, did you hear what he said? And then get outside and say, I didn't hear a damn thing he said. Or we go, hey, I'm sorry to experience that, but it's true. And maybe perhaps we can figure out a way to compensate you for the injustices we've had. And that would be a healthy response to that. But instead, like I said, we have delusional people who don't even believe none of this shit even happened because they
Yeah.
don't want to experience that experience.
Well, I think I think sort of a thing that sort of happened, right, was the the Black Organ Cares Fund, right?
Right,
Where we saw the first rollout from COVID, right?
right,
Like the first rollout of funds that came, most of it went to white businesses. Most of it went to white communities, And so when we're talking about all these things with diversity and stuff, the people that got left out, like always, was the Black people, right? Because we had the Hispanic community that sort of rallied together and was able to sort of mitigate that a little bit. Not a lot, but like they were able to mitigate that a little bit. The Asian community was able to mitigate that a little bit. But then at the end of the day, as expected, the Black folks get left behind and stuff like that. And so and for a variety of reasons, right? Like when we're talking about just access to opportunities to sort of set you up and have the ability to have agency in these types of situations.
right,
Like just Black people were just always sort of caught in those intersections, right? And
right,
so what happened was, they had the Organs Cares Fund for Black businesses and the Black community. And then the first thing, and it was sort of to right the wrongs and in some ways, right, to sort of make amends, specifically for the Black community. As long as can fill out a form and it's supposed to help with those disparities that were blatantly happening
right.
during that time. And the
And that
first
was
thing that
civil rights, yeah,
yeah, and so it was like, okay, this is what it looks like. This is it right here. And then a week later, what do you know?
yeah,
Lawsuit, complaints,
yeah, because
people
they don't
people
believe we can do things for ourselves, and
yeah,
this is that whole reinforcement of the service industry personnel. It's like the best that a Black could do is entertain white America, but we can't run corporations. We can't start our own businesses. All of these things that are the foundational aspect of the capitalist system, because we're not living in a socialist country as much as I appreciated my partner, for, leaving Rutgers and going to Germany or to Russia or wherever he was going. That's not the option for us all. We don't want to,
yeah,
all of them. I like right where I'm at.
yeah,
I know that my family, I can tell you the plantation that my family walked off of, and they own part of it now. So, but this whole notion, Stephen, that we can't seem to control the narrative for our lives, and that this reinforcement that says that if we're standing alone and we're left alone, we're not going to be successful. So we got to be handheld by somebody. We got to be overseen. We got to be watched. We got to be handled. All of these things. But instead of just giving us what's just due us, and allowing us to come together and control our own narrative, that's something this country seems to have a difficulty with. But we've
yeah,
proven time over and over again, we have intelligence, we have people who understand how constructs work, we have people who've made lots of money, and they don't always all have to be ball players. Not that I'm knocking us, all of that. They don't have to be ball players. They don't have to be entertainers, dancers, and all that. They can be rocket scientists. They can get us to Mars. They can be doctors like you are, So, but what is that special substance that needs to be reinforced in them to let them know that these pathways are available? And so, this is the kind of rhetoric that really gets me, gets me in a tizzy, because I believe that foundationally we have to be responsible. And again, Stephen, and I also don't want to sound like as if we are victims constantly, because on the other side of it, we got just as much issues going on in-house as we got going on out-house.
oh
You know,
yeah, yeah.
so
And I think that is I think that always gets conflated, right? Because it's like, okay, obviously, like the thing that's sort of ringing around Portland right now is the whole thing with the TikTok dog. And
right,
and so it's like, yes, there's things that sort of exist, but they're not exclusively because of the stereotypes, right? Like they're not examples of this of perpetuating those stereotypes. This is just people being people,
Yeah.
right? And so we uh like we live in a society that's patriarchal, it's capitalistic, it's sexist, it's racist, all those things. But when things happen in society, it's not an example of like all what that meant and what that said was that, oh, yes, black people, we're all struggling, not just you, we're all struggling. And so we don't trust giving you money, we don't trust investing in you to prosper like we're investing in everybody else, because we think that you're just going to buy Jordans and you're going to, have cookouts and you're going to do all this stuff. You're going to blow your money. You're not going to use it properly. So we trust. So what we do is we trust giving it to somebody we trust, somebody that looks like us, and then you could get a job from them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that you can take care of your family.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It's
so
funny.
it,
Yeah.
you know,
Go ahead. And I agree. I jump right on that. It's funny because you said that in our society, to some degree, is patriarchal. But on the white side of our society, that may be a true example of what the structure looks like, the construct looks like. But on our side, it looks like BIPOC. It looks like everything else other than the fact that as a man, we ain't running shit. Black men, it seems like as if, we subordinate to everything. It ain't, so in our side of the fence, it is now what is running us is BIPOC or equity or diversity. All these things become the head of the household for us in language, but no one talks about us and the black man in our society in terms of how he has been stripped to some degree of any of his not only just fiduciary obligations to his community and his family, but his leadership obligations, that ability to stand up and because Martin Luther King said something, man, that always lives with me every day of my life, because there are some things that most people may not, when you hear me talk, you may not know that I house these things, and that's ethic, uh, character, these kinds of things, integrity, these kinds of things. These kinds of things, are real in the human experience, and you bring forth that. I ain't trying to be looked at as something that is not ethical or any of those other kinds of things. But a lot of times the system forces our men into believing that they got to make a choice between what's healthy versus unhealthy to survive in our society, which is a sad reality, because we do have choices, but at the same time, man, I do believe the construct is twisted and it's giving mixed messages constantly. On one
yeah,
side of the fence, it's a patriarchal world, and on our side of the fence, somebody has said the black women is the backbone of the black family. And that may be true in some cases, but I know a whole lot of black men that are still strong and running families and doing shit and being. And so when that onslaught or that deficit comes to the doorstep, is that the first one that steps to the door is not your mama, but your daddy, and we address those kinds of things. So but like I said, we have to take some responsibility for those things. I mean, I think that
yeah.
that's an invitation for us to stand up and go, hey, right now is a perfect time for black men to stand up and get in the game.
Yeah,
You
and
know?
I think that and I think we're seeing that, right?
Yeah, man,
Because
that's what I'm saying. Perfect time.
one of the things that I'm fortunate to see prior to me having kids is that we're seeing this whole sort of outwardly vocal movement of black men wanting to actively be in their kids' lives and actually document it, right? Like, where they're doing their kids' hair, when they're just sort of just doing the things that like you just don't normally, you're just not used to seeing, right? Like when I was growing up, like I didn't see my father doing certain things. He would do them, but like you wouldn't see that on TV. you wouldn't see that just turning on a screen or turning on a TV and seeing sort of that representation happening to sort of encourage or inspire you. And I think that is actively because, us as Black men have taken it upon ourselves to rewrite our own narratives.
Yeah,
right.
right.
Where we're like, okay, I got my camera, I
So
don't see something that,
yep.
it's like you're going to come straight from me. And so now we're starting to see society see that as a norm and not just an anomaly. Because prior to that, all you were seeing is freaking super predator, freaking, kids beating up people, all these different things, world star. And so now it's like, now that Black people have access to or now that Black people are compelled to share their stories, then you're seeing that because there's so many stories being out there, now the reference points for society have changed because of that. And that's something we did, right? Like, we didn't ask for handouts. We said, okay, this is what you guys are saying about us. Well, we'll show you something different, And so I think it's we us as people, we've done that from the beginning, right? Right. Like I'm a big movie buff. So when The Birth of the Nation came out, they were saying that we needed the KKK because freaking Black people were running around raping our women.
Yeah.
Right. And so
see where that whole sector of the genetic disposition became real clear. That was the transitional time when it was rooted in the sexuality, the question of rape. But the real issue was the seed.
Yeah.
Okay. It wasn't the rape. The rape was one thing. Well, they could have got away with it without the seed.
Yeah. They're like, they was raping everybody.
There was mulattoes being born as a result of some of this shit. Right.
Yeah.
And not only just on our side is going after these white women, it was these white men and the slave women. They was perpetrating that on us. A lot of this biracial stuff and all that came as a result of the white men, doing, these unspeakable things because they was sexually, they was depriving us, they was castrating us in public and taking our sexuality and taking it to a new low. They was erasing the whole thought of me, in an erection in public or even anywhere, I had to sneak around with that, that whole thing. So until they figure, well, that we're going to cut off his balls and genitals. And that's really the message that we're trying to let them understand is that we know that part of you is an issue. And because our whiteness is threatened by that. So if that's the root of all of that, then I get it, I understand it. But the question still remains is, how do we move forward and increase our opportunity to improve the conditions of our our country, our communities and all those things. And these are the most difficult questions when you start looking at all the content that goes into where we are today. It's almost like, to me, it's like, surely there are more smarter people than myself looking at what we call the phenomenon of this country. And if I was to look at the phenomenon of this country and see to what would be being produced as a result of all of that 400 years of what we have, to me, they used to always say something about a fly or a roach was going to live and exist on the moon. Okay. Well, if they ever got up there, that they would live and they would survive. Why? Because they say they tenacious, they breed and they can. I believe that our society is creating a character in a human category that, to me, looks a whole lot like what that book a lot of people read called the New Testament in the Bible. And it's creating a character in a human in a society to where that character is going to be strong beyond their wildest imagination. They're building muscles in us that we never even knew existed.
Yeah. And I think we're seeing that now, right? Because like I'm going into healthcare and so, the thing that sort of caught waves and is still picking up is they call it unconscious bias, but like it's not unconscious bias. Like it's a perpetuation. It's a perpetuation of stereotypes within society, right? And so they're saying that Black people, the darker your skin is, the less likely you can feel pain, right? Like the darker your skin is, the less, the less you need to prescribe pain medications. You know, the darker your skin is, the smaller, the smaller the capacity of your intellect. You know, the darker your skin is, the more resilient your genes are, or the less resilient your genes are, right? Like, like once they during COVID, once white people found out that COVID was disproportionately killing Black people,
there you go. That's
then it was like, oh, it's time to open up businesses now. Right? Like it's time to do that. It's no worse than the flu. It ain't killing us. We can catch it.
That number, Stephen, and this is you bring up a really good point on that one, and man, and then we can do the turn on this if you want to, but I think this whole notion, man, that when people, if you are a society, and under Trump's administration, it would appear that Blacks were a subordinate in that society, as much as they want to say race wasn't the issue or so on. But if you was a person who was standing there and you represented 50 million white people in this country, maybe there are some Black people that go along. Those Black people, again, we living in one of the most delusional times in the history of our existence. But the bottom line was that he was there for white people, and this country is here for white people, and so forth and so on. But when you think about that, Stephen, and you think about this whole notion about this virus and what it can do, why would I get in the way of it? If I knew that it was killing 5 Black people to every 1 white person, why would I get in the way? It reminds me of the time of the corporate realities when Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, a few of us, we started going out because during the time of that gangster rap, remember the time of that gangster rap? Mm-hmm. And a lot of us wanted to understand, well, how that gangster rap, how are these cats making all this money in this gangster rap? And there was a couple of corporations, Sony and a few other ones that was funding, but they were being selective about the type of rapper they were funding. They was funding them rappers that go rat-a-tat-tat, put a nigga on his back, right? Not the ones that was speaking some conscious rap about the evolution of our culture and that kind of stuff. They wasn't funding them.
They wasn't going after no J. Cole's. They was going after.
They was going after them cats who was talking about nigga, kill that nigga. And so they was feeding that mouth. And so today, why would that corporate reality change? If they're saying, if you go to Bend, if you go to Savannah, you go to any of these places where a lot of white people flock to for beaches and outdoors, all that kind of stuff, you would have gone there over this year and you would see that probably less than 10% of people wear a mask.
Yeah.
Because they didn't think that this virus was affecting them. But it was affecting minority people so the question would be, so that whole construct or that whole phenomenon that was going on over the last 4 years or 5 years, it had a deliberate intent to do some things, and I think it accomplished a few of them things because it killed a lot of Black people, okay, and a lot of people of color. So, and I don't like to go with these conspiracy theories, but it ain't no conspiracy. I mean, goddamn, CNN had a running scoreboard for the last year on there talking about keeping the numbers. So what's the upside on this, Stephen? Let's try to get to some positive things. What is really occurring today that is real positive? Okay.
Well, the thing that I noticed, and I noticed this sort of as a trend navigating just the world as just a black person, right? Like the conversations that I have about just the ideas that I want to bring into the world, like those things are like it to bring those to find support and all that stuff, right? Like to be able to find support in the things that I want to bring into this world. I feel like it's easier now, like you get more of the benefit of the doubt. You get you have ears that are curious and open to listening to you. And literally like the same stuff I was doing in 2019, I started doing that in 2020, started doing that in 2021, different responses, and I think that that's reflective. I'm actually seeing that just like now navigating just sort of just being a young professional at this point, right? Perfect example, right? Like I I got rejected from medical schools when I applied in 2019.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I ended up applying in 2020. Literally, I had my feedback session in June, and I sent in my application for the next cycle at the end of July,
Mhm.
right? The only thing that's going to change from me being rejected to me submitting again wasn't I didn't retake any tests. I didn't do any of that stuff. All I did was made my story, just retold my story in a particular way, right?
Mhm.
I was still doing all the stuff that I said I was going to be doing. The only difference is I marketed myself, or I told my story in a climate that was more receptive to it. And so I'm seeing that, like, for people, for Black people that are just sort of just navigating it and being vocal about the things that they're expressing, uh, the society is more aware of the things now.
Right,
They're not fairy tales anymore.
right.
They're very real, because we had nothing to do but witness it all and go down these rabbit holes. And so the positive is that, I yes, still getting rejections, but I also got those acceptances,
Right.
because there's people just more aware, right? Like, it's society is open to Blackness.
Well,
uh
I don't know how open it is.
yeah, asterisk, right? Like,
I think that there's a keyhole of light, and them running backs, they score when they see. That's all they need, right?
mhm,
So people who I think that there's some characteristics that need to come along with that strategy or that
yeah,
perception, and I think that there has to be some character rooted in that. The person has to have some sense of I'm okay, you
yeah,
know, and they have had to have some victories along the way, and they have to have some internal fortitude, the desire to want to accomplish and achieve. We have a society that constantly uh, take us and takes that out of us. When it's given to us, our society constantly reinforces the fact that we're less than and this and that. So the upside is that I like the fact that we're reinforcing and supporting each other in our Blackness, that there's a large amount of us that are unapologetically that way, that are natural. I do believe that there are sectors of men and communities in our society that are willing to stand up to the injustices, and when they ain't afraid of a gun-toting group of white people, that they go and get their guns and tote them the same way, understand the reality of that we both live in a society that we both need to get along in, or there's going to be some difficulty or some bloodshed, and that we all going to have some losses in that. And
yeah,
I think that that's the part that they all take for granted, is that they believe that we are a group of passive recipients of our condition. We won't uprise. We won't get upset about none of this. We'll just take it. And I
yeah,
think that that's a story that has outlived its time. I think that we are in a time where the positive nature of us is that we want to try to move to a solution, but at the same time, we ain't gonna let you continue to impose that damage on us. The buck stops now. Going forward, no more damage. If you can just simply stop doing more damage to us, then we can probably start maybe making another step moving forward, and then
yeah,
be more deliberate about that. And I like the fact that we're deliberate. I like the fact that young Black people are restless to the degree that they're willing to try to get another 5 yards in a cloud of dust out of this movement. And
hmm,
hopefully, at some point in time, when you come into the same space that I'm in today, you'll be able to have arrived to some kind of reality in your mind that what equity really means. And to me, equity simply means is that when we increase the conditions, or we equalize the conditions of the lesser amongst us. And to me, that's what equity is that when we see a direct uh, tragedy or a trauma center, is that we drop on that trauma center and we bring that triage to that center and we lift that up, instead of saying, oh, there's a trauma center over there, oh, it's Black, or wait, what, it is white or whatever, and do absolutely nothing about it. And that to
yeah,
me is not equity. I mean, it's just a conversation. So
yeah.
but hey, man, I do appreciate taking this time and catching up with you, Stephen. Best of luck with the next phases of your life, man. And like I said, I got much respect for any young person that is willing to step into this arena of called life and forge ahead any kind of respect, achieve or arrive at some kind of respectable outcome for yourself. Because in the end, it's only you got to live with. Anybody else gonna be living with you. Maybe your woman might want to live with you, but surely. Short-lived. If you ain't got nothing going on, that's gonna be a short-lived proposition anyway. But anyway, this was great, man. I'm glad I had a year to come back and take a look at some of these things. Again, man, I can't help the fact that my mama raised a fighter. Somewhere along the line, she knew towing 7 kids in line that she needed somebody in there to be able to, because my dad, he come from an era of time where you're talking about those things about the voter, from 1944 until now. He come off a hog farm, man, and went straight to war. So the bottom line was that they allowed us to fight for them, even within what was that, the 14th Amendment or the 13th? No, it wasn't the 13th. I think it might have been the 14th Amendment, where this whole notion of even this whole notion about Lincoln's freeing the slaves. What the whole condition of what Lincoln was really actually, Lincoln didn't free shit. Lincoln did what he had to do to be able to get more bodies into the Civil War. And so the only promise he can do, because there was blacks rushing on him in Virginia, so to the degree to where he had to hear what they were saying. They were saying, if we had a pathway to freedom, then we'd be more than delighted to get into your war and fight your war, because there's enough of us back here willing to fight for our freedom. So he had to somehow pen that paper, the emancipation, all that kind of stuff. And he had to do that in order for him to be able and open that pathway. So he was forced to open the freedom pathway. It wasn't that he gave us anything. So,
his reluctance.
Yeah.
So, it's always good to chat with you, chop it up, catch up. Unfortunately, because of COVID and everything, everybody has to just keep their distance sometimes. So, if it's through,
we are doing all right.
like if it's through a screen, it's okay with me, right? Like it's
I don't care how you get the word out there, man. We just need to keep it going and make sure that we're administering and reinforcing this hope. Man, I think the foundational reality is, it's like the white man say he don't need hope. White man say, money is hope for him. Well, maybe we ought to consider that. But I think for us, there's other things that we need to continue to be able to reinforce in one another. Now, I'm not talking about that shit about, looking at you and not really, and then trying to figure out how to put a knife in your back. I'm talking about the true love and joy that we could experience with just knowing that there's a place that we can come home to, that we know that there are people that love us and care about us and respect us. And there's a community that we can go, we can get our hair cut, we can eat some greens, we can do all that shit that we do, right? And we know that we won't be victimized by those who disagree with how we do what we do. And when we can arrive in that place, then I think we're going to arrive home. And I think that we'll have other opportunities to reborn and to regrow some of those opportunities in young people that we can advance this agenda down the road. So, so Stephen, you're one of those ones, and we'll keep an eye on you, and we'll hopefully that you will become a beacon like the rest of us had, and I got to tell you, as I tell anybody just listening to this, the road is not easy. I ain't gonna sit here and tell you coming down this road, the clicks that I've come down, and this is easy. But what is true is that if you stay on the road, you avoid as many potholes and pitfalls as you can, but understand the difference between what resurrection really means. Resurrection to me simply means is that when you fall in one of these holes, is that you quickly, as fast as you can, climb your ass back up out of it and stand up. Account for the things that you have come short in, like the prodigal son. Oh Lord, what a mess I made of things. Please help me, and get your ass back on that buggy and keep it moving. Because if you got a destination, you need to get there. And that's how I've lived my life. Good and tall, short and weak at times, but it's got me here and it's got me alive when I can honestly tell you, when I look at my high school class of 360 men, that there's probably 29 of us still left, and so, it's what it is. So anyway.
Yep. And so before we get off, I've made it a point to always ask people for the podcast. It's like, we're in Portland, right? One of the widest big cities in America. What they've been saying. And ironically, one of the sort of iconic, locations of last year, of this whole, racial justice or Black Lives Matter movement, like it was going down out here. And so with that being said, this being a Black platform for Black ideas, like what is the Blackest thing that you've done in Portland?
Oh man, Stephen, stand on the front line, being unapologetically Black. The next thing is that for the last 15 years, I've printed a publication and produced a media company that specifically is focused for and by Black people, and the other part is that, man, I've written programs, culturally specific programs that address and deal with addictions and gang intervention and all those things. But what I've done lately is that I've made sure during the pandemic, when it hit and when I was clear that we were going down, I packed my rig up with all the materials that were preventative materials that could possibly work against the COVID. And I made sure that I got around to as many Black people, families, and businesses as I possibly can to make sure that they had adequate defense things to be able to fight against this virus for them and their family. So, and I wasn't apologizing about that, so those are the things that I do on a daily basis, pretty regular. I'm still getting PPE out to people who need it, and trying to stay true to what this thing is all about. Because the death of us don't necessarily have to come at the expense of some outside condition that we know is just conditional and systemic, and so we have to be a little smarter than the systems that have set up before us, and recognize that if it's a trap somewhere on that street or on that pathway, we need to damn sure have known where those traps are, and we need to mark them and keep it moving. So whenever you run into a trap, I run into a trap or a situation that is counter-organizing us and counterproductive to us, you need to put a stake in the ground by it and put a flag on it and say, beware, this is where this is.
That's a lot to unpack right there. I think that was a good send-off. And so, so again, I appreciate you, John, for taking some time to drop some knowledge with us, catch up with us. Again, if you want to learn more about John, definitely check out Flossin Media. Check out all the stuff that he's got with the Soul District Business Association. Check out the first episode of the PDX Black Rose Podcast, because that's where we first got introduced to him. And definitely check out his, the Black Beat podcast that he's hosting.
Where we're unapologetically Black. We tackle those issues that are hard to deal with.
Oh yeah.
We unpack it for you. And if you got a suitcase, bring it.
Yeah.
We'll unpack it for you. Yeah. All right, my brother. Always good. Talk to you soon. You hear? Keep up the great work, Stephen.
Oh yeah. Yep. Keep doing the things that keep inspiring people. So
yes,
without further ado, catch you later. Adios, and be safe. Wear your mask.
And brother, you ain't got to ever worry about that. I'm gonna put on 2 of them in some cases. See you later. Yep, see ya.
Have a good one.
All right, peace, man.
Black Rose PDX Podcast is recorded at the Soul District Business Association office in collaboration with Flossin Media. We are located off of Northeast Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard in Portland, Oregon. This podcast is recorded, mixed, and mastered by Stephen Christian. Background music is provided by Spring Gang at Epidemic Sound. Follow us on all social media platforms at PDX Black Rose. PDX BLACK ROSE. Give us a rate and review on your favorite podcast platform like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and many more. Click the subscribe button to get notified about new episodes. And make sure to share this podcast with your friends and family. Thank you.